Let us bring in the very man that John Craig was talking about there, former Conservative leader, Sir Iain Duncan Smith. And you're live, Sir Iain, outside the Foreign Office. This visit, is it going ahead, as far as you know?
Well, I'll be honest with you, we now don't know, because it was definitely going ahead. He was coming here. They thought around about the weekend. I've been in touch with ministers since then, demanding that they tell their officials they're not to meet him. I haven't had anything back from them in that regard, but I do say that one of them even sent me a text to say, we don't know whether he's actually coming. So this is turning into a mess. The reality is he should never have been told he would be welcome. He's coming off his own bat. This looks to me a little bit like sophistry, perhaps organised by the embassy out in China, so that he comes without officially being invited, but then, oh, because he's here, we ought to see him and tell him that we don't approve of him. That would be a coup for the Chinese government right now. This man was sanctioned by the US government, as was Chen Quanguo, who was the architect of the oppression of the Uyghur and the genocide. They're both sanctioned by the US. We haven't sanctioned either of them. Had we sanctioned them, they wouldn't be allowed here. So this man, now the new governor, who was Chen Quanguo's deputy, is coming off his own bat to the UK. I hear that other governments in Europe are now having cold feet about this, because the Interparliamentary Alliance on China is campaigning in all these countries to say don't let him in. And I think there may be, therefore, I hope, a U-turn from the government, but we've not heard anything of it yet. If they allow their officials to see him, that is an official visit. It's no good saying he just happened to be here so we saw him. That would be an official visit of a man responsible for a genocide. Over 1 million people now in labour camps, women being forcibly sterilised, children in re-education camps. This alone is an utter disaster, and we should have no truck with it. We don't need to have a word with him to tell him that. If we sanction him and the architect, it sends a bigger, more powerful global message than having a quiet cup of tea and lecturing him, oh dear, you shouldn't do this. That is pretty pathetic.
Robust pragmatism is how the government describes it, getting somebody over here to tell them what they've done and what they're accused of.
Do we honestly think that a man that's coming here off his own bat, the Foreign Office actually says they didn't invite him, so they're now using denial. But while he's here, they say they will get the message across they don't approve of what he's doing by sitting down in a private location, not in this building over here, but somewhere else, to tell him that they don't approve of what he's doing. It's a much shorter and simpler way to do this. Sanction him like the US has. Sanction Chen Quanguo like the US has, and others too. We sanctioned 4 rather lowly officials. That was it. People like myself, Helena Kennedy, and many others in both houses of Parliament. We have been sanctioned by the Chinese government. So they've sent a message to us, you're not welcome in China. Okay, that's their message. We haven't done anything except raise a human rights issue. These two are responsible for the human rights problem, that is to say the genocide of the Uyghur. I think the only thing to do when you want to send a message is do it both feet first. In other words, you are sanctioned. You are no longer welcome in the United Kingdom or any of its attending territories. That is the end of it. That sends a much more powerful message to China that we do not in any way condone or even accept that what China's doing has any legitimacy, and if they don't stop it, we will carry out further sanctions.
Why don't you think he's been sanctioned here?
I think there's a fear that somehow the Treasury is quietly, and others saying, oh, don't do this, we might upset the business in China, which is important, so we mustn't go too far. The trouble is, it's worse doing a little bit and not the whole thing, because what you end up is looking weak, and China then kicks you around. China understands strength, and the reality for us is the strongest thing we can do is to tell them this has to stop by joining with the Americans and others of our allies, and all together making sure we sanction those who are guilty of this massive, terrible, murderous abuse. And we should do it today. That would be the best thing. Even if he hasn't landed yet, he's sanctioned, he can't get off the aircraft, you better catch another one back to Beijing.